Hello from Sash from me. Welcome to the programme.
First tonight, the threatened coastal communities that have been thrown a lifeline.
£6 million is to be spent in Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex, some of it on buying up blighted properties from residents who expect to lose their homes to the sea.
Natalie Gray has been back to Happisburgh in North Norfolk, where coastal erosion has already claimed 26 properties.
I first met Di Wrightson 10 years ago, when she had a thriving tea room in Happisburgh in Norfolk and her garden was twice as long. A decade on, her business is closed and she was resigned to her house falling into the sea without a penny to help her move on. But the future's suddenly bright after a promise of compensation for her and about a dozen other householders perched perilously on the cliff top here.
All these years we've been feeling that life is on hold. We don't know how much we're going to get, but we just know there's going to be some form of compensation, and it's just a dream come true.
In our region, nearly £6 million is being shared between 4 local authority areas. North Norfolk has been given £3 million to spend along its coastline, focusing on Happisburgh and Cromer. Neighbouring Great Yarmouth gets nearly £300,000, which will be spent at Scrapby, while Waveney and Suffolk is getting £1.5 million to work with communities at Cottenham and Eastern Bavants. £1 million is also going to tendering in Essex to fund initiatives at Jaywick, Harwich and Walton. This is the village of Happisburgh in a photo taken in 2003. Prior to that, 25 houses had been lost to the sea over about 15 years. But just look what's happened to the coastline in 6 years. It comes right along here now. That road, that garage and that house has all been lost. And now the coastline cuts along here. Di, when you moved in 29 years ago, describe what was here.
Right, well, there was my garage. Beyond that was a road down which I used to drive and come into the garage.
So how much will people like Di Wrightson get?
Well, we'll be looking to buy the house for people like Di and for the others on the cliff top. Now, how much we pay, that's something we'll be having to look at. But we'll be looking for something as if there isn't the problem, so that they can move on, so that they can go and buy a house somewhere else.
To think that these people now can actually get on with their lives is fantastic. Unthought of a year ago.
The man they call the King Canute of Suffolk says the money would be better spent on defending the coastline.
We're thankful for any money that is applied to the future of the coast. But I feel in this way it is looking for methods to back out of protecting human habitat on the coastline.
Back in Norfolk, and Jane Archer, who was told her home was worth just £1 when applying to borrow against it, is hoping the council will buy her home from her and she'll be able to lease it back.
It's such a lovely village. The community spirit here is really good. We love being this close to the sea. We bought it 20 years ago expecting to sort of stay here for the rest of our lives, and that's what we're hoping to do.
The money means this coastline will change even quicker than if it was left to nature. That's because if these householders agree to sell their homes, they could be demolished as early as the spring. Natalie Gray, Anglia News, Happisburgh in Norfolk.
Next, 3 men who were arrested yesterday in the wake of an armed robbery at the Centre MK in Milton Keynes have been released without charge.
Robbers targeted the Leslie Davis jewellery store at the shopping centre yesterday lunchtime. They burst into the shop, firing blank shots and spraying CS gas before making off with a number of watches. Neil Bradford has been following the story and has this report.
It was, for all but one shop, business as usual today. The Centre MK reluctantly allowed us to film inside after yesterday's drama, when an armed gang threatened staff and customers with a handgun. Blank shots were fired amid terrified shoppers. A noxious gas was also used. This afternoon, as staff at Jewellers Leslie Davis were preparing to reopen, the shock of what had happened yesterday was still sinking in among shoppers and other workers.
It's frightening, yeah. As I say, you never know what's going to happen next to you, but just lucky that nobody got hurt.
It's just, it's shocking that it could happen in Milton Keynes.
I didn't know until now that it was so close to the Keys Scale itself, but yeah, that is really shocking.
The gang had come to the Centre MK to steal designer Rolex and Cartier watches. Their target was just feet away from a children's carousel and Santa's grotto. As dozens of families enjoyed the Christmas display, robbers let off CS gas outside and possibly inside the shop. A blank firearm was then discharged. As they made their getaway via exit North 11, more blank rounds were fired.
The gang then made their getaway in a stolen black Ford Focus, which was found abandoned less than 15 minutes later, a few miles from here, in the Cottenham area of the town.
3 men arrested yesterday have since been released without charge. The hunt for the gunman continues.
It was a nasty incident, very shocking for the members of staff and members of the public that witnessed that. And we are doing everything we can to make sure that we arrest the people responsible for this. And obviously we're appealing to the public to help us in order to do that.
A spokesman for the Leslie Davis chain told me security is constantly reviewed. But armed raids like this are a permanent worry for jewellers like Windsor Bishop in Norwich, themselves the victims of several robbery attempts.
We now have 2 full-time security working with us, both inside the store and outside of the store. We are trained on a regular basis by the Norfolk Police, and we also work with an external company who come in and train our staff internally on a regular basis as well.
This was the first armed robbery in Centre MK's history. Police and management are keen to stress that shoppers' safety is paramount. There is a dedicated police station here and almost 150 CCTV cameras. Detectives say every effort is being made to put the culprits behind bars. Neil Bradford, Anglia News, Milton Keynes.
Now, in other news, pigs on a farm in Norfolk have tested positive for swine flu. The test showed that some animals on an unnamed farm have contracted the N1H1 strain of the disease. It follows earlier cases in Northern Ireland, but the government says there's little risk to humans.
Well, now to the question of whether or not it's better to educate our children in single-sex classrooms.
It seems more schools are considering keeping boys and girls apart, as some experts claim pupils learn better without the distraction of the opposite sex.
But opponents say that doesn't prepare children for adult life. And today the controversial issue was on the agenda at a conference in Cambridge. Claire McGlasson went along.
A class system with a difference. Malsham High School in Chelmsford teaches both boys and girls. But it teaches them separately. Boys in one room, girls in another.
When boys get older, they get more mature, so like you can join them when they're more mature, but it's just like distracts you when they're younger.
If we go out or we're still with girls sometimes, like we're not completely shut off from girls, so we still do talk to girls and like.
At an education conference in Cambridge today, academics and teachers met to argue whether this should be the future for our schools.
There are fewer distractions for the boys, there are fewer distractions for the girls. They're more able to focus on the work required if the other gender isn't present in the classroom.
According to a study of schooling, the single-sex approach reduces gender stereotyping in both subject and career choice. Pupils are more confident in subjects that their sex traditionally struggles with. But interestingly, it doesn't have an effect on their attitudes to home life, like who should do the housework. But not everyone agrees with the rule of divide and teach. Here at Cottenham Village College near Cambridge, classes have been mixed for nearly 50 years, and there are no plans to experiment by separating the sexes.
I mean, I feel that separating children by sex is not a natural thing to do. In most walks of life, male and female work alongside each other, learn together, and I don't see why secondary school should be so very different.
The argument is that children learn better and achieve more without the distractions of the opposite sex. But opponents insist it's understanding each other that gives children a true lesson in life. Claire McGlasson, Anglia News, Cambridge.